So today I'm doing a series called Theory of Everything, and this is going to be part one of a multi-part series. And in this part one, we're going to be covering the Great Fires, where they happened, why they supposedly happened, just the amount of damage done to all these areas, and why I think these cities were really destroyed. And that's going to be part one to the Theory of Everything. So, just starting out here, you have this picture where you have these two men standing next to this Globe Theater sign that says Grand Opening, which is really odd because if this sign was here while all this destruction was taking place and the sign didn't burn but all these buildings were crumbled from the top down, it looks like. So it makes me think the sign was added afterwards, but if it wasn't added afterwards, that's a pretty extreme anomaly. And the other thing is too, is like, why would they add it afterwards? You know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a very, very sketchy picture. So this is a picture from the Battle of Bakhmut, where the Russian and Ukrainian army slugged it out over the city for months. They used thousands of artillery and mortar shells and couldn't level the city. I want you to keep that in mind throughout this presentation, just to show how much firepower it really takes to level a city to the levels that these great fires did. Okay? So I just want you to keep Bakhmut in mind throughout this presentation. You can see this cathedral-like building on the left, where the roof is missing, along with the wall to the right. They say that all this damage was caused by a fire, but if it were a fire, wouldn't have burned those trees to the ground as well? All these wooden trees around it. And the one thing is too, is like, the common pattern throughout all these buildings and the Great Fires is their roofs are gone. Okay? The roofs are gone. So, that tells me that maybe something came from the sky and damaged all these buildings the way they did. Look at all this rubble too. Like, this area was absolutely either carpet bombed or some type of directed energy weapons were used. This is not easy to do, this level of destruction, even with our modern military weapons today. This is another great picture where you have all the roofs are missing on all these buildings, okay? And you just have the walls standing. So the attacks couldn't have came from the bottom up. It would have to be from the top down if you're just literally just destroying all the roofs and leaving the walls intact. Somewhat intact. This is a really interesting picture where you have this Romanesque architecture still standing. The rest of this building was obviously blown apart. Definitely fire couldn't have done that. Fire doesn't blow apart buildings and leave a bunch of shrapnel everywhere. That's not what happens. It doesn't leave a bunch of dust. Like if you were jackhammering in the concrete, dust like that is everywhere. Okay, fires don't do that. Not at all. And like this building over here has the roof blown off as well. This is a very high quality picture from the Great Fires, and it is very intriguing. It's almost like it's honestly a color picture, because these are brown right here, and of course they whited out the skies like they usually do. They don't want you to see what's flying around up there. And yeah, the roof's gone here. You know, the roofs are gone in all these buildings. The roofs are gone, and a lot of damage to the upper floors as well. And these floors on the inside were also removed too. So it's almost like maybe shells were coming from the top and coming vertically down, like maybe artillery. could have done something like this. Definitely some type of combat operations were taking place in this area. This picture is very intriguing due to the old Tartarian Romanesque style architecture right here that was completely obliterated by some sort of weapons. Then you have a wooden shack over here that is just unfazed. And you can tell this wooden shack has been there for a while. So, if there was this great magical fire that was destroying this building over here, it would have definitely took out this building that was literally right next to it. So, we can say for certain whatever destroyed this building here was not fire, because it would have took this one out too. And there's a lot of examples you're going to see in this presentation like that. This is a very interesting picture, considering you got all these scorch marks. But with all these scorch marks, you also have a tree with the branches just perfectly intact right here. So if there was a major fire right here, it definitely would have burned this tree and this pole. So that tells me that some sort of either directed energy weapon or explosives did the damage that occurred right here. The one really interesting thing about this photo that I think is more interesting than anything is this building in the background has taken so much damage. Like, it looks like it was fired on from all sides. Roof's gone, of course, and just tons of damage. Like, I just really wonder if there was soldiers held up in that building and they just bombarded it from every direction, causing it to be in the state it is in this picture. And of course you can see all the rubble and the rest of the damage that has occurred over here. Now, what type of aircrafts or air power were doing this? This is a picture from the Crimean War of 1853 to 1856 with some sort of craft, as you can see here. To the upper left-hand side, it appears to have some sort of wings. This is before planes of any sort are supposed to be flying around anywhere. Way before the Wright brothers flew their makeshift plane in 1903. And it's right up here, right here. And you see the body of the craft. Then you can see what looks like to be some sort of wings coming off from the sides. So this is a picture of the Field Museum at Graham Park at the northern end of the Chicago 1933 World's Fairgrounds. The one thing that's really astonishing about this picture, Chicago is already built. And Chicago is already built in all these old pictures. Like, the oldest pictures you're going to find of Chicago, all of these buildings are there. Okay? They were here before we got here. And there's an amazing amount of evidence for that. This is another picture. Just shows massive destruction everywhere. You have this one pole standing. This building is pretty much intact. It even looks like it has its roof still left, which is pretty ironic that it survived, considering all the buildings around it were completely obliterated, except maybe this one and this one over here. This one looks like it's still got its roof too. So, looks like very selective striking, from these weapons. This photo is really cool because you can see on this building right here that there was direct fire from the ground into this building all along here. So I can see just a bunch of soldiers in these windows firing down, and the people down here firing up at them, causing this damage. Because if it were air power doing this, the roof would have been gone as well, like all the other buildings. So that tells me that whichever type of fighting was taking place, whoever was fighting who, there were ground forces and there was air power too. So we're looking at a conventional conflict that happened not too long ago that we are not told about. This is a comparison from the movie The Best in Hell, where like you can compare like this tank right here is firing into this building here, and it's just very similar damage. Like I will show you in this clip right here.
Леший Вескер локомотиву. Готов работать. Прямой наводкой. Огонь! Еще один. Огонь! Локомотив Вескеру. Высоко работаешь, работай на 2 метра ниже. Да тут не видно ни хера. Локомотив мотору, прикрой меня. Уже.
Looks very similar to this. Very similar. Bottom up destruction. Trying to see if I can get a better view of that building. This is a very accurate comparison, just to show you guys exactly like what I'm thinking, you know. Like that building right there is just like that building that I just showed you. And this is what I had imagined had happened to that building in the past.
Я ж просил, уходи. Зачем же ты так шумно? Уходим. Подавить. И теперь уже желтый дом.
Yeah, so I just, played that video just to show you a visual of what I'm talking about, what I think definitely happened right here. Some similar type of engagement, for sure. Now, these are pictures from Mariupol in 2022. And as you can see, it's very hard to destroy big buildings like this. These buildings have been hit non-stop, and they're not even missing the roofs yet. So, it takes a lot of artillery to do the damage the Great Fires supposedly caused. Another picture from Mariupol, where it's like the amount of artillery and munitions that caused the damage that supposedly the Great Fires did is astronomical. Astronomical. This is kind of a summary of the Great Fire of 1851. You know, it's just trying to say, like, you know, how the fires broke out and everything was hot and dry and the wind carried the flames and all that nonsense. You know, like Holland, Manistee, you know, got caught on fire. You know, other places. I'll show you a map, actually. So, the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 did not only happen in Chicago. It happened in Holland. I believe up here would be Manistee. And, I believe Sheboygan might have got hit as well. Possibly, I can't confirm that. But, yeah, multiple places burned at the exact same time. Hundreds of miles away. That can't be blamed on the wind. And this is, just kind of summing up what, pretty much what was said about the Chicago Great Fire and stuff. You know, so if you want to pause this and read it, you know, be my guest. But, got a lot of material to cover, but not enough time. I'm trying to keep these videos under 30 minutes. That's what I'm trying to do, because I usually make them too long, and the format's just way too long usually, which I have to try to work on. It's just so much information. It's so much data to unload, and it's very hard for me to crunch it in any type of reasonable time frame. So moving on. So home and store of J. A. or P. Morgan, Bad Axe, Michigan, after the fire of 1861. It's either 1861 or it's 1871. Never mind. I believe it's 1871. Either 61 or 71. But notice how this whole entire yard is scorched. Okay? But this house is just left alone. The common theme throughout these so-called Great Fires is that wooden structures are completely left alone. Brick structures or anything made of steel, like steel buildings, are just obliterated. But the wood is always fine. So, even these trees, like, they got scorched, but they're still standing. Very odd, to say the least. So this is a map of the Great Fire of 1871, like what was covered and what was burning. So at the exact same time, we have Chicago, Illinois, Peshtigo, and I believe Peshtigo is Wisconsin. And you got all this sliver of Michigan right here, okay? So you got all these areas burning at the exact same time, hundreds of miles away, separated by water. Something's wrong with this picture. Deeply wrong with this picture. So, Great Michigan Fire, sometimes referred to as the Manistee Fire, 10/08/1871, in the Michigan's Lower Peninsula. So the incident size is an estimated 2 million acres. Local fire brigades and civilians were the only people to respond to the fires. You know, no military. Just the fire department and a couple good old boys that could grab a hose. That's it. Which is kind of strange. You know, where was the military? What were they doing? Were they busy fighting? You know, maybe fighting people coming from the sky. Fatalities and injuries, 250 fatalities. Some estimates are higher. I think it was much higher than 250. Reasons this fire was selected for the 100 fires list. Fire is historically significant. Keyword, civilian mass casualty event. Okay, civilian mass casualty events are usually, pretty hefty, usually in the thousands. So it makes me think a lot more people died than they're willing to admit. I don't believe any of this was a fire. I believe there were fires, but I believe that something else may have happened. And this is just explaining, how people, were dealing with the fire and things like that. You can pause and read this if you'd like. So, this picture is from Michigan, and see these railroad tracks right here? The heat was so intense from whatever was causing all this that it warped the railroad tracks. Completely warped it. Odds are from intense heating and intense cooling, I would imagine. Absolutely just astonishing to me. It seems like maybe a directed energy weapon could have did this. So this next picture, if you notice, the brick building is decimated. But this wood shed over here didn't burn, but it did sustain roof damage. So maybe did a bomb or a missile come through the roof here and detonate in this brick building over here. And if you look, this wooden factory or barn area behind here is still intact too. This tree still has its leaves. There's no fire right here. There was no fire. Everything would be gone. But this building is completely just obliterated. Like it's dust. Absolutely amazing. So at the bottom of this picture it says, ruins of the Capin and Bursack Leather Company after the 1871 fire. Next to him with his arms folded, Isaac Capin is at the far left, and John Bursich, or whatever his name is standing, I'm guessing, to the right. Yeah, it's a very interesting picture. These two, very interesting. This is a picture I couldn't exactly figure out, but I thought I would include it. I'm not sure what all this is. It looks like debris, or maybe a flood. Water came through here and it carried a bunch of stuff and dumped it here. But, yeah, it's strange. Very strange. And this was supposedly from the Great Fire, too. This picture. Which I don't see any fire evidence at all, but I see maybe a flood evidence. This is another interesting picture where you got this person's giant house that, again, the roof being obliterated, and it looks like it's smoking or on fire. And if you notice, nobody's even bothering to look at the house. They're all looking to the left and up in the sky. There's something very important over here that's not in frame. That's probably causing all this damage, and they're watching it do it. Some craft from the sky, some unknown craft. Maybe an airship, maybe something more. Now this picture is, so this picture is these buildings right here. These are all buildings that got blown apart. And this wall right here is still standing. This building over here looked like it may have took some rough damage. Pretty interesting. This is a picture from Canada. As you can see, there's wooden structures still standing and stone ones blown out. Which, if this was caused by a fire, that wouldn't make any sense. Any sense whatsoever. So you got stone, basically you got gravel right here because it's so destroyed. And you got damage here. And you got all this debris just laying around and stuff. It's very interesting. And it looks like you got some buildings that may have took damage are all around here. And you got this massive like fortress up here, which is pretty interesting. This is a newspaper from the Great Chicago Fire This is a newspaper from the Great Chicago Fire of 1871 that is selling for $7,500 at the time of this video. $50 for a high-resolution copy. If anybody's downloaded and interested in downloading it and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. Just showing the newspaper of the time. Yep, 1871. You can see the date up here. October 14th. Very interesting. Now we're going to get into the nitty-gritty here. This is a photo from Salem, Massachusetts in 1914. What is this in the center right here? This thing in the air. And what is this thing on the left just floating right there? Okay. These are some of the best photos I've seen of crafts from this time. If you zoom in on this photo, there's all sorts of anomalies too. Just weird things that don't seem to add up. So you got craft here, destruction all over here. There's even, like right by this house, right here, is this little figure. It literally looks like the Tin Man when you zoom in on it, in The Wizard of Oz. I thought that was pretty cool. So probably something somebody set up in their yard, but still odd. This is a picture kind of labeling where things were. You got the St. James Church, start of the fire. You got, which looks like some sort of plant here. You got Proctor Street, Proctor Ledge Memorial. Then you got, House 21, 23, 22, and 25. Tin Man over here, House 21. Very interesting. Close up on the craft. It literally almost looks like the bottom of a craft. Weapons here, like a cockpit or like a skull-shaped cockpit and a giant horn going up in the sky. Which recently, when we had that UFO scare around New Jersey, there was a UFO. I wish I had the video that was driving around in the sky. Looked just like one of these. Blew my mind when I seen it. If I find that video, I will make an edit and I'll post it. This is another picture of Salem. The description says these are militiamen guarding these items. My question is, from what or who? I have a hard time believing that they're just guarding these items from other people. They do seem pretty relaxed in this picture. You can see that they're having just normal conversations with each other. So it doesn't look like active combat is going on at this time. But it's still very strange. The other strange thing is the two main surviving structures in this picture are electrical poles or telephone poles and chimneys from all the houses. Just chimneys as far as the eye can see. And the rest of the houses are just obliterated. So it seems like certain materials were obliterated a lot easier than others. So I'm leaning more towards microwave or directed energy weapons of some sort at this point from the sky. So this right here, so this is also Salem, and the description of this photo is it's a refugee camp for the fire victims. Strange word to use, refugee camp, for a kind of strange wording, to be honest. And again, all the trees, and looks like you can see some power lines in the background, like no fire came through here. This whole story just is not adding up. None of it's adding up. Like, not even one piece of it's adding up at this point. Bird's eye view of the burnt section of Salem, June 25th, 1914, with the fire not yet under control. This is a picture from an alleged fire in 1910 that was literally called the Big Blow Up. Odd name for a fire. What are they trying to say with that name? Weird how the trees are still intact in the background, but there's buildings obliterated everywhere and empty lots. Got trees still standing over here. This is the same picture, better quality. Trees still standing over here. Doesn't seem like a great fire to me. So, with all these pine trees still standing, maybe they were wet, they were too moist for the fire to burn. You know, maybe that's the reason they're still standing with all their pine cones and everything still on them. So let's see. Oh, okay. So I guess that's not the case. Yes, pine trees burn easily because of their high sap content, and are classified as softwoods and ignite quickly and burn hot. This makes them ideal for starting fires and for kindling, though they burn faster than hardwoods. Note, Timberwolf firewood processing equipment. A dry pine tree can become extremely flammable, sometimes compared to a can of gasoline. Wow. And can pose a significant fire hazard. So the factors contributing to pine's flammability: high sap content, softwood classification, the dry needles, and if there's a drought in the area, that can also make it worse. So my conclusion is these should have burned. No doubt. This is another picture that just shows concrete rubble everywhere from these supposed great fires. This building looks like a bomb went off inside. Also look at the debris on the bottom of the screen. Fires don't mangle and throw things everywhere. Explosions do that. It definitely looks like some type of kinetic strikes were done to this area and destroyed everything. This is a wild picture. So many people in this bombed out area are just walking all different directions, not even fearfully. Seems like maybe they're coming back after all the destruction was complete. Maybe coming back to see what's left, possibly. Looks like maybe even a mud flood type event could have occurred here. Notice how they're calling a Great Fire war. Because there was war in London in 1940. The Germans were bombing them. But they called it a Great Fire. Interesting correlation there. Maybe in the past they called bombings Great Fires as well. Just absolute destruction. Scaffolding still there, untouched. This was a newspaper article from the Great Fire of 1871 showing a saucer, flying saucer, above the city as everything was being destroyed, pumping down a beam onto the surface. Was it a microwave weapon, a directed energy weapon of some sort, or something of immense destructive power which we may not be able to even comprehend or understand? Another picture of a airship that was beaming down lights towards the city as well. And this was over Sacramento. This was actually over Sacramento. It says Sacramento, which I believe is in California. Same concept, two different cities. Wonder what this is up here. Didn't notice it before. Strange. And this is going to be the end to part 1. Part 2 will be coming shortly. Thank you guys for watching. If you could please like, please share, and stick around because part 2 will be coming soon. And part 2 is going to be very intriguing as well. You're going to learn a lot of new data, a lot of new information, and the world's going to start clicking together like a puzzle. And I promise you, by the end of all parts of this presentation, the world will be a uniform puzzle put together on the table for you to understand and be able to learn from, and hopefully be able to prosper from what you learn. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night. Thank you.